So, you know, I also had this friend, she was a real professional dancer, serious, and she was a little bit too thin. We used to eat lunch together, and she'd eat one egg, that's one hard-boiled egg, one crumb at a time. It took her about an hour, and she'd always be asking me things like, oh, you know, how do I look? How's my extension? How is it? And I'd be like, well, you know, it's okay, but, you know, you look a little sick. Maybe you ought to put on some weight. And that always made her really happy. Anyway, I don't think I personally will ever have that kind of problem, anorexia or anything, because I love junk food. It is my lifeblood. I live on French fries and chocolate, which is why it made perfect sense for me to go to Boulder, Colorado, the health food capital of the universe. And when I first got here, I was really confused and disoriented. I didn't know what was going on, but I thought, dance, you know, that's something I love. I'll get involved with dancers and dance groups and dance companies or something. And I started calling everyone madly in the phone book trying to find a place, and I ended up at this workshop taught by this woman who really concentrated on our breathing. She used to come into class and give away all her earthly possessions to her students. And she'd say things like, let go of your Western capitalist aggressive tendencies. Reach for the sky. And I'd be like, what? And then she'd say things like, now remember, initiate all movement from the sacrum, And it took me about 3 or 4 hours to figure out what part of the body the sacrum was. So anyway, then one day I get home and there's this message from Patricia, and she said she was returning my call. I'm like, my call? I didn't know who she was. I guess I called her, I don't know, in my sleep. And so she said, well, why don't you stop by class sometime, you know, see what it's like. And so I'm like, okay, I stopped by class, and oh my God, I was so freaked out. These people were so different. I was so scared. You know, Patricia drives up. She has got an oxygen tank hooked into her nose. I was like, I couldn't understand what any of these people were saying. I couldn't communicate with them. I was really nervous. I didn't know how to act. And then she put on the music, and we all started dancing. It was great. I was having a good time. So I should explain. This group, they're all differently abled adults who founded their own dance company here, and for several years ago. And it was great. I started working with them and performing with them, and I started learning a lot more about dance, you know, that it's more than just, you know, jumping around in a spandex leotard or whatever. There are other things involved. So, you know, dance as community, as therapy, as enlightenment, whatever. It was great. But after a while, I got really kind of sick of sort of the politics between these people's counselors who wanted them to go bowling as opposed to a dance rehearsal that they wanted to go to, and there was all sorts of weird political things going on that really got me a little cynical about what was going on, and I sort of dropped out of the group, although I came back to, you know, help out in the concerts and stuff later on. Yeah, so at this time I figured, well, you know, hell, I'll put dance on hold. I mean, I'm not Gelsey Kirkland or anything. I'm supposed to be in art school doing photographs. Okay, so I'll do photography. So I do all these things, started doing all this theater and dance photography and taking all these pictures of these beautiful dancers at school, and my pictures got in the paper and on posters, and it was like, I don't know, there was just like nothing to it. I didn't really care after all that. I just didn't care. And the weird thing was, by this time I was sort of learning the difference between like politically correct and unpolitically correct art, and I realized publicity photos of these women stretched out in their leotards wasn't quite on the cutting edge of postmodern photography. So I'm like, okay, maybe I better do some projects with people I know, you know, make it a little more interesting, involved. And I started working with my friend who was a choreographer, Molly, and I took zillions and zillions of photos of her, more than I'd done of anyone in my entire life, you know, oh man, everywhere. And we did this whole production with slides and text and words and everything, and you know, at the end I just cared more for my 6 rolls of film I'd shot of playing as dancers back home than I cared of this entire stack of stuff of Molly. So I thought, oh, well, maybe I have to get more involved with my subject. So this other choreographer, Nancy, I'm like in her piece. I'm not just in it, I'm like the dancing photographer in her piece. I mean, this is one of these pieces of the dancing photographer, the dancing musician, everyone was in the piece. The whole audience, you know, I'm photographing the audience, I'm photographing the dancers while it's going on. It was really improvisational and spontaneous, and actually it was sort of a really learning experience, because the dialogue changed every time we rehearsed, and the whole challenge was to try and out-yell everybody on the stage, which I was really having trouble with in the beginning. By the end, I was screaming my head off. So afterwards, we all went to this, you know, dance party with all these dancers, and I was psyched. I thought, oh, maybe I found my place, you know, here are all these people and common interests and everything, and there's this great music, and I was just ready to break out. I was so psyched. And like everyone was just sort of standing there and talking, and I started talking to one person. She was telling me how she was at a party and how all these people can't dance, all these non-dancers are really awkward and uptight, and she was imitating the way they moved, and I'm like, okay, and everyone's just still standing there and gossiping, getting stoned, and like that one person started dancing, and after a while I got really bored and left. So then I figured, hey, you know, maybe I'll go to some dance classes, and signed up for them at the school. And there's a beautiful studio. It was so clean. I was practically afraid to walk on the floor. Everybody had to take their shoes off and be really careful. And, you know, we did all this work, and, you know, we wrote midterms, and, you know, I don't know, at the end there was nothing, just...
Then I signed up for this workshop with this guy who's like a guest choreographer. I thought, oh, wow, this will be neat. And so like the first day he comes in, and it's not like, hi, what's your name? It's like, all right, guys, if you had 4 days left to live, what would you do? I'm like, you know, total panic attack. You know, dance, who cares about dance? Oh my God, I'm gonna die in 4 days. And then the next thing he says, okay, you have 10 minutes to choreograph a piece, go. Oh, by the way, you have to keep your eyes closed the whole time. I was like, oh my God, you know, totally freaking out. I've never heard anyone say stuff like this before in my life. So I ran into the gym. We were in this gym, and I look around, and there are all these dancers doing these beautiful movements, all with their eyes closed. Of course, they're still at perfect turnout and balance. It made me sick. So I'm just like, what do I do? And so I'm like turning around and panic. So I started climbing up the wall. You know, there are these bars in the gym on the wall. So I started climbing with my eyes closed and just hanging out there and swinging around. I'm like, I don't know if it's dance or what. Who cares? I'm just like, maybe this is it, my solo. Oh boy. Anyway, so we also had this choreograph outdoors, and we're like, imagine 20 young dancing women out in the city park, broad daylight, summer day. Everyone's wearing like tube tops and shorts, and all these guys are like trying not to stare and ogle. I mean, it was absurd. And this one group of dancers in our class was doing this piece that movements, I can't even do them, but I've only seen them here in this part of the country. Anyway, these strange sort of gestural movements that started down on the like banks of the creek and crawling out of the water and rolling around in the grass, all progressing towards this tree that they were going to encircle, this big tree. And like in the middle of it all, this guy walks by with his dog, and like the dog decides to like pee right in the middle, and the dancers are dancing around this peeing dog and the guy, and nobody changes facial expressions. I was like hysterical. It was the best piece I'd ever seen in my entire life. And nobody cared. I couldn't believe it. So I don't know. Is there a moral to this whole story? I don't know. I guess there's no moral. It's just
like in dance class the other day, and it's like, oh
my God, I'm talking to the designated driver. Get your video game going. Yeah. Oh my God, we're on live, and I'm talking to Ben.
Right.
Ben, how you doing?
Fine.
I can't hear you. They can't hear you either. Why don't we take this off?
God, I'm great.
Ben,
I'm alive.
how much have you had to drink tonight?
I've had about
That much, huh?
yeah.
And what do you think about your driving ability, Ben?
Oh shit, man! I could drive every day home.
I don't think so. I don't think you're in any condition to drive.
Here we go.
I don't think so.
Check this out.
Excuse me?
What?
I don't think so. No.
What? Watch me drive.
I don't know if I
drive.
want you to drive.
I drive.
I don't know if I want to watch you
drive.
drive. He's trying to drive. I don't think so.
I'd like to say that not only being a great dance club, we think of Ground Zero as being a place, an outlet for alternative music. And, you know, we got bands like this.
We're on a dance, eating pretty much like we're on a dance. There's no my blood, don't have a chance.